I was part of a volunteer search and rescue team for about 3 years in Oregon. Most of the time it was hikers who got turned around or sprained ankles too far in. Long hours, tough terrain, but usually a happy ending. This time wasn't like that. The call came in about a missing solo hiker named Erin. She was experienced, had backpacked half the Pacific Crest Trail. Her car was found at the trailhead near Mount Jefferson, but she hadn't checked in for days. Weather was turning, and daylight was shrinking. Our team set out early. Thick forest, steep ridges. We split into pairs, each assigned a section. My partner, Luis, and I headed toward an old logging route that hadn't been maintained in years. Overgrown. Silent. About 5 miles in, we found her tent. That's when things started feeling wrong. The tent was intact. No signs of struggle. No animal tracks, no blood, no ripped fabric. But it was open. Zipper halfway down. And inside, everything was still there. Sleeping bag. Backpack. Food, some of it halfway eaten, like she'd stopped mid-meal. And the part that really got to me? The inside of the sleeping bag was still warm, like she'd just gotten up. There was no note. No gear missing. It didn't make sense. Luis radioed it in, and we started a careful grid search around the camp. That's when I heard the whistling. So, off-key. Just 2 notes, repeated over and over. I thought it was Luis at first, trying to signal something. But when I turned, he was still standing by the tent. He hadn't heard it. The sound came again, this time from deeper in the trees. Closer. I called out. Hello? Erin. No response. Just whined through the branches. I walked toward the sound, maybe 30 yards in, when I found something else. A trail of small stones, laid out carefully in a spiral pattern. Not natural. Not random. Like someone had arranged them intentionally. And in the middle was a single hiking boot. Same brand Erin wore. Same size. I yelled for Luis. When he got to me, he went pale. We marked the spot, flagged it, and kept going, calling out for Erin every few minutes. The whistling had stopped, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. That night, back at the ranger station, one of the dogs used in the search refused to go near Erin's tent. It just whined and pulled away. 2 days later, they found nothing. No trail. No scent. Nothing but that tent and that single boot. The case went cold. But here's what haunts me. A week later, Luis called me in the middle of the night. Said he'd woken up at 2:13 a.m. to whistling outside his window. 2 notes. Off-key. He lives in a 3rd-floor apartment. I haven't been on a search team since. Because I don't think Erin got lost. I think something found her. And I think, whatever it was, followed us back. I was never supposed to be up there alone. My cousin Jared and I had planned the trip for weeks. 3 nights at his grandfather's hunting cabin in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. He'd gone up dozens of times before. Said the place was old, remote, and creepy in a cool way. But the day before we left, Jared's mom ended up in the ER. Nothing life-threatening, but serious enough to keep him home. I should have canceled. But I didn't. I figured one night alone wouldn't kill me. The cabin sat 2 miles off a dirt logging road. No electricity. No signal. Just a rusted-out propane stove, dusty cots, and the smell of mildew and ash. I arrived just before sundown and lit a lantern inside. Jared had told me the basics. How to lock the door from inside, how to use the outhouse, where to find the water pump. He'd also warned me to ignore any weird noises. The woods mess with your head up there, he'd said. At first, I thought that's all it was. That night around 1 a.m., I woke to the sound of screaming. Not distant. Close. I sat up in the cot, heart pounding. It wasn't an animal. I've heard coyotes and foxes. They sound wild, broken. This was different. It sounded human. A high, keening wail, like someone crying and yelling at the same time. I grabbed the lantern and crept to the window. I couldn't see much, just a dim slice of trees in the moonlight. The screaming stopped for a few seconds, then started again, closer. It was circling the cabin. I backed away from the window, turned off the lantern, and crouched behind the cot, gripping a hatchet Jared had left behind. The screaming turned to sobbing. And then, this voice whispering my name. Help me. I nearly dropped the hatchet. No one knew I was here. No one. And the voice, it sounded like Jared. But wrong. Slurred. Distorted. I stayed crouched there for what felt like hours, until everything went silent again. The next morning, I found footprints around the cabin. Bare feet. They circled 3 times, then disappeared into the woods. There were no tire tracks. No signs of anyone hiking in. Just those prints. And one other thing. Scratched into the back door, faint but fresh. Don't ignore the screams. I packed up and left within 20 minutes. Jared never went back after I told him. Said his grandfather used to talk about hearing voices in those woods. Thought it was dementia. I'm not so sure. Whatever it was that night, it wasn't an animal. And it wasn't human. I never liked camping alone. But I did it anyway. There's a stretch of forest near the Appalachian Trail in Virginia, not far from Blacksburg. Remote. Quiet. I went there to clear my head after a breakup. No cell service. Just a map, my pack, and a 5-mile hike into nowhere. I set up camp near an old fire ring. There were signs of past hikers, charred logs, a bent fork stuck in the dirt. I didn't mind. The sky was fading fast, that golden hush before night drops. I pitched my tent and boiled some instant noodles over a small flame. Then, just before dark, I noticed something odd. Across the clearing, maybe 30 feet into the trees, something was tied between 2 trunks. At first I thought it was rope, but as the light faded, it looked more like cloth. Torn. Fluttering just slightly in the wind. I made a mental note to check it in the morning. That night, I lay in my tent, wide awake. The woods weren't silent. They never are. Crickets. Leaves shifting. A distant owl. But sometime around 2 a.m., all that stopped. Dead quiet. Then I heard it crack, like a branch being stepped on. Not far. I held my breath. Then another. Crunch. Closer. I unzipped the tent just an inch and peeked out. Nothing. Just trees. Still and black. Then, maybe 10 feet to the right, I saw something move. Just a shape. Still, like someone standing behind a tree, barely peeking out. I whispered, "Hello." No answer. No movement. I reached for my flashlight but didn't turn it on. I just sat there, frozen, staring at that spot in the trees. Then it moved, fast, like ducking behind another tree. I slammed the tent shut and held the zipper. I didn't sleep. Morning came slow, gray and cold. I opened the tent and forced myself out. Walked toward where I saw that figure. Nothing there. But when I looked up, I saw the cloth again, hanging between the trees. It wasn't rope. It was shirts. Torn up flannel. Moldy. A few knotted together like someone had made a makeshift barrier. Or signal. Nearby, I found something worse. A backpack half buried in leaves. The fabric was sun-bleached and torn. When I opened it, everything was rotted. Except a wallet. There was an ID inside. Faded photo. Guy looked maybe early 20s. It expired in 2004. I dropped the bag and backed away. I didn't even pack my tent. I just grabbed my essentials and left. Hiked the 5 miles back without stopping. A ranger later told me several people had gone missing in that stretch over the years. One of them matched the name on the ID. They never found bodies. Even now, I don't go near the woods. Because I still remember that thing, whatever it was, standing in the trees. And I remember the feeling that it wasn't hiding from me. It was waiting.